Emily might have that
Yeah,
information.
yeah, she would have that sheet of them. No, okay. All right, well.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Good. Okay. Welcome to the 2019 Municipal Candidate Forum. We are so glad that you are here. And tonight is hosted by Purdue Votes Coalition, the Purdue Exponent, as well as Pi Sigma Alpha Honor Society. This event is meant to be a nonpartisan opportunity for students and community members to get to know our city council candidates. Tonight we will begin with 1-minute opening statements from each candidate. We will then be asked a series of questions. Each candidate will be allowed a 1-minute response to those questions. There will be a time at the end for audience questions, so you can submit questions by texting eJones500 to 37607, and we'll mention that number again at the end. And then after audience questions, we'll allow each candidate to give a 1-minute closing statement. We ask as an audience that you remain quiet and silence your cell phones. Comments and interjections will not be permitted. After the forum, you're invited to attend a reception in Beering 1284 and interact with candidates one-on-one and get any more questions that you may have answered. We also encourage you to register to vote if you haven't already, and there are tables outside of this room to register after the forum is over. I would now like to welcome tonight's moderator, Connie Deboer. Connie Deboer is the Managing Director for the Center for C-SPAN Scholarship and Engagement in the Brian Lamb School of Communication. For 25 years, she was a senior producer and on-air moderator for C-SPAN, starting several of the network's key programs, including Book TV, Washington Journal, and America in the Courts. She was also the network's first international producer, taking C-SPAN to London, Tokyo, Berlin, and Paris. On the air, Connie conducted over 2,500 live call-ins and interviews, including Presidents George H.W. Bush and Jimmy Carter, as well as First Lady Laura Bush. A graduate of Kansas State University, she started as a radio reporter prior to moving to Washington to be the press secretary for Kansas Congressman Dan Glickman. We are honored to welcome Ms. Deboer and begin tonight's forum.
Thanks, Emily. It's great to be here tonight. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Want to say a word of thanks to all the people who are organizing this. These are not easy events to put on, especially while you're also going to class and trying to get your work done. So my job tonight as moderator is really to try to make the trains run on time. So that's what I will be doing, beginning with District 1 and ending with at-large candidates. Everybody is going to be allowed a minute to give their opening statement, as Emily said. And our assistant moderator, Frankie, is going to be doing the time. That's Frankie right here. And she's going to notify you all when there's 30 seconds left for your position, and then she'll also give you time. If you run out of time, I will stop you. Even if it's mid-sentence, I will stop you. With this many people up here, it kind of feels like the Democratic presidential debate, doesn't it? So first we're going to have an opening statement, and then I'm going to ask the first question to the District 1 candidates. And if you, as a way of introducing yourself, just want to raise your hand when I say your name. So Sydney Rivera is a District 1 candidate. Nick Deboer is a District 1 candidate. District 2 candidate is Peter Bunder. Is that correct? Did I say that right? Good. And then the second question is going to go to the District 3 candidates, Jonathan Jones. Do you go by John or Jonathan?
I usually go by John.
Okay. We'll go by John and Shannon Kang. And the third question will go to our District 5 candidates, John Meyers and Kathy Parker. And the fourth question will go to the District 6 candidates, who is Norris Wang and Austin Bohlin. And then all of the at-large candidates are going to receive the fifth question. I understand that 3 of the 4 of you will end up being representing the city on the city council. There are 3 open seats. Is that correct? So we have with us tonight Steve Dietrich and Gerald Thomas and James Blanco, and an empty seat for David Sanders, who I don't know, is he coming? Okay, we'll see. So we're going to then repeat these groupings as we go through the series of questions. Again, it's important to you to know that although I am asking the questions tonight, they are not my questions. These are the students' questions. They came up with them. They were put together by the Purdue Exponent staff and also representatives of some of the various organizations who put on this. They cover a variety of issues, including redevelopment, transportation, sustainability. As Emily said, everybody loves a good spar, but this isn't really a sparring debate. This is an informational debate. And it's really for two things. It's to make sure that you understand what the candidates' positions are. And secondly, to make sure we understand that the campus is part of the community and that you as community members need to understand what's going on in your city, and the city needs to understand what's going on in the campus. So with that, we are going to start with our opening statement, and we're going to begin with a statement by someone who could not be here tonight.
Hi, everyone. So my name is John Jones. John Livermore is also running for District 2 City Council, and he just expressed that he had wishes to be here tonight, but he's taking an exam this evening. And so he expressed that he looks forward to giving the students an opportunity to vote for a student to represent the students. And he wishes he could be here this evening, but to reach out to him on his campaign website and or in social media, because he always is willing and able to talk about the issues that are important to the students and to all the citizens that live in West Lafayette. So that was from John Livermore again for District 2 City Council.
Thank you, John. So we start with Sydney Rivera.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sydney Rivera. I am a two-time Purdue grad, a current medical student, and a proud West Lafayette resident of 7 years. I love this community, and I want to be the next District 1 City Councilor because I believe students should be represented by students. During my years at Purdue, I have sponsored university collaborations on local, state, and international scales, and I would continue to do so as your city councilor. I also want to bring this community the type of development that students want. We need grocery stores. Part of my district is a USDA food desert. We need more table space for off-campus studying, more recreation options for weekends and summers. And we can't even begin to talk about affordable housing without talking about some changes to the regulations around the Historic Preservation District, an area of untapped potential for transforming dilapidated student rental houses into new, affordable, safe apartments. As a future healthcare provider with a master's in public health, I would also like to support the health of students and families. This county has a great need for mental health resources, and I want to lend the city support to a new student outreach clinic that's being developed between medical students and Purdue health professional students to serve under-resourced members of our greater Lafayette community. I believe West Lafayette is already a great place to live, but I feel equipped to make it even better, and especially since I would be a student representing students. Thank you.
And with that, your time is up. We go next to the other candidate for District 1, and that is Nick Deboer.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nick Deboer. I'm running for re-election for District 1. I got into politics knocking doors for Barack Obama in 2008, and there was something about that election night that you really can't recapture, or at least I didn't think you could. But over the past 4 years, I felt it daily and working for the city. Between the State Street project, getting that done in 4 years, between watching buildings actually be risen into the sky, something I never thought would be possible before that. Making more liquor licenses available on campus, and creating an environment where development can actually occur, right? I would have never thought a Target would show up in West Lafayette. I wouldn't have thought that we'd be able to see a 16-story building. So I'm running for re-election because the rent is still too damn high. We are going to work to make sure that we can continue on building large, tall buildings, because density will bring affordability to the housing that is elsewhere in the city. And I'm off on time, so register to vote by October the 7th and vote on November the 5th, or the other way around.
That was Nick Deboer, District 1. We have Peter Bunder from District 2.
Good evening. My name is Peter Bunder, and I represent the 2nd District. I'm also the president of the West Lafayette City Council, which means you go to a few more meetings than everybody else. I just recently retired after 34 years as an Episcopal priest, serving young adult ministry from a church at the edge of campus next to Mackey Arena. My one point tonight is I think the city's in great shape. I believe that we are positioned to do even greater things in the next 4 years, and I look forward to working on the projects yet to come. Thank you.
That was Mr. Bunder from District Number 2. We now go to District Number 3, John Jones.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is John Jones, and I currently have the privilege of serving as your District 3 City Councilor. Thinking back to my freshman year, I distinctly remember when Purdue was voted the worst college town among the Big Ten schools. While I was, of course, dismayed, along with many of my friends and fellow students, I saw an opportunity to help be a part of the change I wanted to see within my city by getting engaged with the City Council. I believe that the city of West Lafayette has truly made great strides in recent years, but the work is not yet complete. We still need to address problems such as rental affordability, increased recreational development that's geared towards students, and availability of grocery stores that are close enough for students to walk to. Addressing these problems won't be easy, but I believe that my connections and experience through serving in the City Council, along with skills I gained in listening to student voices and student government as the Vice President of the student body, will help me get the job done. In short, I'm here tonight because I want to finish what I started. It is my hope that you, the voters, will give me that opportunity by re-electing me to represent you for District 3. Thank you.
That was John Jones, District 3, and now the competitor, Shannon Kang.
Hi, I'm going to stand up. My name is Shannon Kang. I am the Democratic candidate for City Council District 3. I am a woman, a student, and a political candidate. It's quite a crazy mix of stereotypes, but I believe this is what I was born to be. I will be your voice, but I will also be the woman you see walking from Wallach to Armstrong. I'll also be the gal pal who gives you a badass feminist talk, cry with you, and aggressively sing Truth Hurts in the car with you. My peers are concerned with housing, sustainability, transportation, and safety. Some apartments don't have recycling, appalling. Bike rides are so full people tie their bikes up to trees. It's inappropriate. We need to educate students on how to recycle, easy, and we need to make sure that there's enough lighting on Evergreen Street, Hayes Street, Dodge Street, and behind the doors in order for people to feel safe. I could be the politician that you never knew you needed. Someone approachable, extremely open-minded, and passionate about Purdue, and sustainably, and about you. If you haven't met me, make sure to come meet me after the forum, and thank you for your time.
Shannon Kang from District Number 3. We go next to District Number 5. There is a District Number 4, but we have no one here from it. Okay. So District Number 5 candidates first. We go to John Meyers.
Thank you. Ms. Dilday, I wonder when they do your bio next in an introduction, you're going to include this forum, because you have too many presidents in this list. You need to bring it down to real life sometimes, I think. I've been involved in the public life of this community for decades, literally. I was prosecuting attorney for a number of terms. Is this on?
There you go. Mr. Myers, start over. We'll start the time over.
All right. I forgot where I was. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now, everybody? All right. Well, I've been involved in the public life of this community for literally decades. I'm told not to talk about how old I am, but I earned it, you know. And I was prosecuting attorney for a number of terms. I taught here at Purdue for a number of years. I've been engaged over the years in organizing numerous groups and activities and task forces, whatever you want to call them, to meet the needs of this community. And I think successfully, because many of the things I help organize, help start, are still functioning successfully in this community and often taken for granted. That's what I bring to the table. I think that's that experience, the variety of it, the extent of it, is good experience for a councilman.
Thank you very much. That was John Meyers, District 5. And the other candidate for District 5 is Kathy Parker.
Thank you. Good evening. And thank you to Purdue Votes for hosting this forum. I'm Kathy Parker, and I'm running for City Council in District 5. I'm so glad to see you all here tonight because you know that democracy is not a spectator sport. It works best when everyone participates, and so it's refreshing to see you young people here especially. Good government begins locally at the town level, and issues that affect the world affect us all, and we ignore them at our peril. We're so fortunate to call West Lafayette home with a world-class university right here in this very place. You are the present and the future, and I'm so proud of you for deciding to use the power of your vote to say who you think would be the best city councilor. I've been engaged in various aspects of this city now for many years, beginning when, in the school level when my children were small, but over the last 4 years I've become super engaged with the city. And the most important thing I've learned from attending nearly every city council meeting over the last 4 years, to Police Merit Commission meetings and the Economic Development Commission, is that people who serve us, from the mayor to the city clerk, they just care, and we are run by a group that cares.
We're going to take you at that. Kathy, that was Kathy Parker, District 5 candidate. I'm sorry?
Mr. Sanders is here. Dr. Sanders is here.
Have a seat. Do we start over? Oh, just kidding. Okay. Next, we go on to District number 6, and Norris Wang is going to start us there.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Norris, actually pronounced Wang. That's all right. Norris Wang. I'm the current District 6 for West Lafayette. That's by the Purdue Golf Course. Most of my residents are geese and squirrels, but I do have a mix of students and residents. Like John, I've been in public service all my life. I'm a retired magistrate judge for Tippecanoe County. I was on the bench for about 10 years. Prior to that, I worked with the Tippecanoe County Prosecutor's Office as a deputy prosecutor. Currently, I found my work with the City Council to be very rewarding. It's an exciting time right now to be living in West Lafayette. We've seen State Street just bloom and 231. I like to continue that tradition, and I know the challenges that we face. So I thank you for being here tonight, and I hope you enjoy us. Thank you.
Norris Wang from District number 6. And another candidate from District 6, Austin Bohlin.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Austin Bohlin. I'd like to thank Purdue Votes and the other organizations that helped put this on. I know how hard it is to be a student and organize these events, so I really appreciate it. So a little bit about myself. I'm a fifth-year senior studying at Purdue, and I plan on living here after graduation. I have a lot of family in the area, and like some of the other candidates have said, it's an exciting time to live in West Lafayette. We're growing a lot faster than a lot of the areas in Indiana, but we still have some issues that I would like to address if I win candidacy. So how many people have had issues with renting? How many of you have heard horror stories about renting before? That's an issue for students, a big one that I'd like to tackle, and my time is off, so I'm going to pass it.
Austin Bohlin, District number 6. Our last 4 candidates are all from at-large candidates. 3 of the 4 of these people will end up being elected to the City Council. We're going to start with Steve Dietrich.
Thank you very much. I also would like to thank the Purdue Votes Coalition and the Exponent for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Steve Dietrich. I'm running for re-election to the West Lafayette City Council as an at-large candidate. I'm a lifelong resident of Tippecanoe County, most of that in West Lafayette. I'm a retired captain of detectives from Purdue University Police Department, serving 34 years there. I now serve as the Cleary Administrator for the West Lafayette campus and 9 Polytechnic institutes across the state. The Cleary Act is a federal consumer protection law. It's an advocacy about crime stats and policies on campus. My wife Mary and I have been married for 42 years. We have 2 grown children. I've served as chair of the Budget and Finance Committee for the past 10 years. I've worked closely with the mayor to keep our city services high and at the same time maintain our expenses. We've accomplished many good things, some of which you've heard tonight, without increasing taxes or cutting services. I've been elected to serve as Vice President of the Council by a unanimous partisan vote for the last 2 years. I thank you for your time. Look forward to your questions.
Mr. Dietrich, thank you. We'll come back to you, Mr. Sanders. We're going to go next to Mr. Thomas, Gerald Thomas, who is also running at the at-large seat.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Gerald Thomas. I'm a third term West Lafayette City Councilman at large, running for my 3rd term here in the city. I've lived here for over 41 years. My wife and I married for 40 years. I have 2 sons. Christopher, who is a medical student or doctor at IU Health in Indianapolis in the 2nd year residency. And my other son, Ben, is a 2nd year grad student at Purdue. I'd like to talk about quality of life in Lafayette. We have some great park systems, trail systems, city services that you can count on. Trash is not piling up in the streets. Your recycling trash is taken care of on a continuous basis. I'm proud of what we've done here in the city over the last 12 years, and I'd love to try and continue that work and effort for the next 4 years. So thank you for being here again, and I look forward to visiting with all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. We go next to James Blanco.
Good evening, everyone. I'm James Blanco. I'm running for City Council at large. I'm a recent graduate of Purdue University. I've gone through many of the same things you may have gone through. Dealt with tough landlords, gone through the rental market, and I've gone through tough classes. So I am running to be your voice on the City Council to fight for you. And if you elect me, I will represent you as students, as members of the community, and as renters and the people at large. I'm running, and if you elect me to the City Council, you will know that I will stick up for you in the City Council.
That's James Blanco, and we wrap up the 1 minute with Mr. David Sanders.
Thank you very much. So my name is David Sanders. I am currently serving as an at-large city councilman here in West Lafayette. I've worked very closely with the student community over the course of my time here in West Lafayette. As councilman, I've worked with the Purdue Sustainability Council. I had a student intern who worked with me on various sustainability issues this past summer. I'm currently, Student Affairs Committee Chair of the University Senate, and that's why I'm a little late, because there was a previously scheduled event that I had to attend before coming over here. I do believe in having an active council that focuses on issues of sustainable development and affordable housing for the residents of West Lafayette. I also believe in continuing the tradition of West Lafayette as a welcoming and diverse community, and I'll work hard to make sure that that continues in the future.
That's David Sanders, the last of the at-large candidates. So thank you all. Let's dig in. We're going to start over here. Our first question going to the District 1 candidate, Sydney Rivera, Nick Bohr, and the District 2 candidate, Peter Bunder. The question is this. USA Today has brought national attention to the amount of luxury apartments available on Purdue's campus and the subsequent lack of affordable housing for students and other West Lafayette residents. What will you do to ensure there's affordable housing continuously available in West Lafayette?
Thank you for that question. Is this on? Yes, okay. So I think, as I said, we cannot talk about affordable housing without talking about expanding the land in which we are developing that housing. There is a large plot of land designated as the Historic Preservation District, which does serve to preserve some beautiful and historic homes in our community. But a lot of that has turned into very dilapidated student rental housing where the conditions are not great and homeowners and landlords are subject to regulations that require them to go before a committee to make certain changes to their housing, and that is oftentimes they are required to use original building materials, which is also not very sustainable at times, using 100-year-old windows and things like that. So we would definitely want to consider decreasing some of the regulations in that area so that some of those houses, especially the ones that are now student rentals, can be converted into higher density apartments at an affordable price. And I definitely think that we could work together to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera. We go next to Mr. Deboer.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been beating this drum since before it was cool, and I'm glad that we've seemed to have reached a consensus tonight. How we solve this problem is by saying that the government can't tell you that you only can have a 4-story building, and that's the biggest problem we have right now in West Lafayette. If you buy a house, if you buy a plot of land, you can only build it up to 4 stories. You have to go through an entire process with the APC and the city council in order to build that, right? If you want to get anything taller than that, you have to go through an entire process. What we should do is allow by right zoning, so you can build as tall as you want anywhere south of State Street. I say anywhere south of State Street because the political consensus to actually build these buildings will fall apart the moment we start attacking the neighborhoods. We're not going to go ahead and tear down their houses. We're not going to take back the historic preservation up north. But what we can do is tear down the slumlords in South Campus, and we can build 16-story buildings down there too, and it'll be through density that we'll be able to start decreasing the rent. And how that'll occur will be through Not the new places that go up, but the old places that will have to decrease their rent. And once again, I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deboer. We go next to District 2, Peter Bunder.
Thank you very much. I'm the man who invented historic preservation in West Lafayette, so I would be happy to go over the history of the thing from about 2009 when the land use plan came in to 2016 when we finally had the full effect of the historic preservation district. How will we get better housing, cheaper housing? We will build more housing. I think that's the answer. The challenge in the city of West Lafayette is that it is very difficult to do anything cheap anymore. We are almost Carmel. We are almost any big city in North America. And the challenge, particularly in my district, is to find a way to preserve single-family homes for the school corporation and offset those kinds of developments like Airbnbs that provide challenges to anybody who would either rent or own in the district.
Mr. Bunder. So now our next question goes to the two District 3 candidates, John Jones and Shannon Kang. The question is this: some community members believe that city bus services should be free for all residents, not just Purdue students. What do you think? And if you support free services, how do you reconcile the cost?
So my initial reaction is I'd want to take a look at just what the dollar amount would be to negotiate such a contract with City Bus in order to cover all the residents of West Lafayette for that. The City Bus is currently free for the students for showing a student ID, and that's offset by what students pay to attend Purdue University. Some of that money comes from that. So I am not initially comfortable with just saying I for sure would pay for all of the residents in West Lafayette to have that free service. But what I would do is I think that here at Purdue, we have a lot of very gifted students in technology, in various fields of technology. And what I think that we ought to do with the City Bus system is try to integrate student projects in looking at the efficiency of their routes, making sure that the city bus system is using the most up-to-date technology that's being developed at schools like Purdue and is running the most efficient routes in order to reduce wait times and provide the best possible and optimal services for students. I talked to a student on my street the other day that was busing up north to more affordable apartments, and they said that they have to wait an average of about 20 minutes for the bus on a daily basis. So it looks like my time is out, but that needs to be improved.
Ms. Kang.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, just initially because the students do get free rides on the city bus. I believe when I first came to Purdue, I looked at the rates to ride a city bus because I thought I had to pay every time. I believe it's very low. It's like a dollar or so, yeah. So I would love to hear, I know James has he really wants to push for a free city bus for all of West Lafayette. But I think I have a lot to learn in this aspect, and but I would love to support James and what he wants to do, and looking at through the budgets and just helping out as much as I can, and also just to listen to the other people in West Lafayette.
Thank you. We move on to District number 5, John Meyers and Kathy Parker with this question. In the past, an ordinance to ban plastic straws was introduced. However, city councilors talked it down to a resolution. If it were proposed again, would you approve it as an actionable ordinance? Why or why not? Mr. Meyers.
That's the one. We got it. This is modern technology. I mean, it's coming at us from all directions all the time. I don't know about that. The greening of government in our community is something that's very dear to my heart. And I think within the government, within the walls of the government, we need to do things like that. We need to be a leader to get rid of plastics and so on and so on. Be green in all ways that we can, as long as it's cost effective. We don't want to throw money at something that's going to be marginally effective. I just don't know what the numbers are on straws. My understanding is that it's probably not a very good project, and whether it should even be the subject of a resolution, I don't know. But we do need to observe carefully the way other communities are beginning to deal with plastic, as an example, because we really do need to do a full frontal assault on plastic. Now, it may be that our plastic bottles and bags are not the ones ending up in the Pacific Ocean, as we've heard, that's dumping coming out of Asia. But nevertheless, plastic's with us forever, and it's not biodegradable, so we need to work on it. But there's more that we need to work on. And our government, I believe, is doing a good job in trying to become a green government.
Thank you. Kathy Parker, the opponent.
Okay. I think that the banning of plastic straws is this really simple solution that we could all take. Most of us can drink without a straw, and you know, when the kids are little, of course we give them straws, but it's not necessary. You can teach children to drink without a straw, and you know, fixing the climate is an area that every human being on the globe needs to work on. So banning the straws in public events like Global Fest and the other events that we have, that seems like a minor thing that we could do. And if people need a straw to drink, of course there are people that need one. They could just request one, and we could, instead of making it a matter of course to give a straw, we could make it something that people have to request.
Thank you, Kathy Parker. We move now to District Number 6 and the two candidates, Austin Bohlin and Norris Wang. Mr. Wang, we'll start with you. The question is this: how are you going to create opportunities for small local businesses that have to compete with numerous large businesses in this area?
Because of the State Street project, we've seen a boom in resident and businesses. It will be interesting to see how the hub, the View, and all those places can fill out those venues. That's something we discussed. We saw that Wabash Landing had problems attracting new businesses and keeping them. We saw a loss of a supermarket that used to be right there on Northwestern, and that had been sorely missed. How do we get these people in there? We have to bring incentives, and we have to bring guidance and benefits, show them why there's a marketplace here. After giving them rent and all that, we can offer to some of the businesses some opportunities that they can, but again, that's free enterprise. We can't force them. I personally wanted to see a Trader Joe's come here, but they're not going to come here. So I have to drive all the way to Indianapolis to get those good stuff. But that's something we will work on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. We go next to Austin Bohlin. The same question, sir.
All right, so there's a couple different aspects involved in this, and the first one is definitely how many people are available to go shop at these different businesses. I think with the State Street project and those things, the densification of West Lafayette is going to make it easier for small businesses to exist because there's more people, and when there's more people, there's more dollars that can go to small businesses. The city can specifically incentivize those things by maybe giving tax benefits or certain types of breaks to encourage local businesses to develop. Another strategy is, as the population of Purdue continues to rise, a lot of the spending within Purdue happens really within Purdue and maybe small outskirts of campus. But if we had a better transportation system, we would really be able to incentivize Purdue students to go further out to where local businesses are. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, to the at-large candidates, here is your question, and I think that the operative word in this question is the most important. So the question is, what do you believe is the most important responsibility of your office?
Narrowing it down to one is going to be difficult. Clearly, it's representation of the citizens of West Lafayette in all aspects, and I'll get around it that way. It is so critical that our relationship with Purdue University stays strong and vibrant. We feed off of that. We are a better location, obviously a better city because of Purdue University. That relationship has got to be fostered and grown and continued. The other part of it is fiscal responsibility. There's only so many dollars to go around, and we've been able to do some pretty good things without having to increase taxes or fees and those kind of things that get into it. But I think as time goes on, that's going to become more critical. We've done a nice job of paying off our bonds, and our credit rating is as good as it can get, which again saves us money. So I think fiscal accountability and the relationship with the university are by far the two most.
And the next question, this question is answered next by Mr. Sanders.
Thank you. I feel my most important responsibility is to respond to every single inquiry I get from a citizen who stops me on the street, who sends me an email, who phones me up and says, what is going on with this? Or I'm having a problem with that. And so I try to make sure that they are directed to the person who can help them solve their problem, or if it's a problem that I, as city councilman myself, can solve, I will work on that problem. So I think being responsive directly to the voiced needs of the members of the community is the most important thing that I can do. I would also like to point out, though, that I do believe in an active council. I don't believe that it should just be mayor proposes, council disposes. I believe that the council should be continuously making its own proposals about the future of the city, and I'll say that I've been very active in making sure that that's a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Again, the question is, what do you believe is the most important responsibility of your office?
Well, I have to agree with Mr. Dietrich that I think most important responsibility is to listen to our constituents and make sure that their voices are heard. It's not about us, it's about what they have to say, and we need to make sure that they're included in the decisions that are put before us as a city. I've been concerned about the representation on the West Lafayette City Council. We have 0 women on the council, and I've said this before. And women's voices are not being heard in our city, and there's a very important voice that we're missing in this city. So everyone needs to be brought to the table. Everyone needs to be included, and again, everyone's voice is important.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. We go next to James Blanco.
My view is that the most important part being a representative is to show up. It is to be at not merely the city council meetings, but it also to be at community events, Global Fest, Mosey, and more. It is to be a member of the community who is visible and is accessible, and that you would be able, that somebody can stop me on the street, ask me about what is facing the community, and that I can answer those questions and help address those concerns in the city council.
Thank you, Mr. Franco. Okay, you're all warmed up. Let's get to number 2. So this is going to be for the District 1 candidates, Nick Deboer and Sydney Rivera, and also the District 2 candidate, Peter Bunder. Here's the question. Many graduate students, professors, and young professionals find housing options in Lafayette, but struggle with the commute to campus. Many undergraduates don't travel to downtown due to the complicated nature of traveling there via public transit. How do you plan to strengthen transportation options between our 2 cities? Mr. Deboer, you start this time.
That's a good question. I think one of the most difficult parts of this question is, do we actually want more vehicles in this area, right? Part of it, somebody could say, oh, we could build more garages or make it more logical to get your car down there. But one of the reasons we did the State Street project was not to make sure that you could drive more cars faster down State Street. It was to make sure that people had a more commuter-friendly walking experience. And so I still think that the biggest problem right now is just kind of that sense of danger you have walking down State Street. There's a lot of vehicles. There's narrow bands to actually get across the river. Until you finally hit that pedestrian bridge, it's tough to get down there. And so I think that we need to slow down traffic. I regret the fact that we never put a roundabout into State and River Road, right? I feel like that or a pedestrian bridge going over it would have been something that would have increased that traffic down further. So as we move through the next 4 years, we'll be examining options to actually make it safer to walk, but I don't want to put more cars down there. And yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Deboer. Sydney Rivera.
Thank you. I think there's a couple different ways you could look at this issue. You could also help people to live closer to that area if they would like to do so, so that commuting is not such an issue. So I think getting more affordable developments closer to that area would help. And I also think that we need to look at what we can do to bring back scooters. There are a few scooters now in the area, but some regulations that were put in place have made it more expensive for them to operate. And so, and also now that there are fewer, they're not as accessible for people to use. But I think if we come up with a better way to ensure that there are enough spaces to park them safely, that it's a great affordable way to access the downtown area for a fun evening, going out to dinner or something like that, and could really help increase traffic to the area in ways other than vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we go to District 2, Mr. Bunder.
Thank you. I believe this question will be addressed in some detail when we begin to discuss riverfront redevelopment. That's the next big deal for the city of West Lafayette, and it is in the planning stages now. What kind of roads do you have? What do the bridges look like? Multimodal transportation will be part of the design feature of the redeveloped riverfront. And that ought to help us with the question you posed. It will be expensive. It will take decades, but that is probably the way to bring this to fruition.
Thank you very much. Okay, on to District 3, Shannon Kang and John Jones. Here's the question, folks. What is one opportunity you see for our city to increase its sustainability? How do you propose to pursue it? Shannon Kang, you start this time.
Yes, sustainability is one of my biggest passions, I'd say. I serve on Purdue Student Government as the executive director of the Sustainability Committee. My biggest thing I want to do is kind of what this little journal says. It says, connecting campus and community. So as a representative for Purdue Student Government, I really want us to push sustainable issues like, I guess that's the opportunity that I really want to take on. And like I mentioned, just putting recycling in the apartments where around campus, just making sure that everyone has that accessibility, and just making sure that everyone knows what going green is, what the impact that it makes, and just making. I think my biggest pet peeve is when I see a freaking banana peel in the recycling bin. Like, that's just that you can't do that, and just being very good about educating the public, I think, will create a great foundation for us to go green.
Thank you. John Jones, same question to you.
So I'm going to take this question and say I've looked at this from many different angles, from being in student government and now being on the city council side. Since limiting it to one way, I think that one thing that really does impact our local area in terms of sustainability, and also ties back to student affordability of rental housing, is the regulations in the Historic Preservation District. There's an example of a house that the owner wanted to replace the roof. It's a part of basic maintenance for an older house to have to be reshingled or re-roofed every certain number of years, and that owner wanted to put an attractive new roof on it that was different from the type of shingles that was on the house. The type of shingles that were on the house were going to have to be replaced more often than the type of roof that the new owner wanted, and were less energy efficient. And those shingles, when they're stripped off the house, are just put in a landfill, and they're there for forever. So not as sustainable, and they're more expensive for that landlord to have to replace with original shingles. In the end, this landlord got lucky because he was able to prove that wasn't the original building material, but this principle holds for all those houses up there. Replacing with original building material is not green and not affordable.
Thank you. We move to District 5 now. Question for our two candidates. Here's the question. How do you see your role in supporting an economy that works for people on both sides of the river, as many Lafayette residents have a stake in the city of West Lafayette? We start with Kathy Park.
Okay, thank you. When economies aren't thriving, they're dying. So we'll need to welcome new businesses in carefully by making sure that they're, first of all, sustainable. Also, evaluating what good they will bring to the community, and more importantly, seeing who they're going to harm, and we can work that out. But we need to bring more people we'll need to have some more jobs that will bring more people, because when you're not having an increased tax base, then your communities are dying. So I grew up in Storrs, Connecticut, which is where UConn is. And it looks exactly the same as it did 45 years ago. They have a new stores downtown, but families that are coming to work at UConn are living an hour away, where there's more things to do than there are in stores. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy Parker. John Meyers next.
Well, our community is part of a larger community in this county. And the development of all parts of the county affect the other parts of the county. But let's remember that within our city, we have, other than SIA perhaps, the critical economic asset for this whole community, and that's Purdue. And so what is critical is the bond between our city and Purdue, that it continue, that we support its development, that it support us, that we continue in a collegial and congenial fashion to work with Purdue to advance it as its development increases. And that helps our community because Purdue draws the sorts of technology and development that we would like. Purdue isn't the only aspect of our community that draws people to our larger community. The other aspect is going to have to wait for another answer. Sorry, I'm out of time.
Mr. Meyers, thank you. Okay, now on to District 6. Hopefully you will like this question. The question is this, starting with Austin Bohlin. If you received a $1 million grant to use for the city in any way, what would you do with it and why?
That's a good question. So me and my girl are big fans of the park systems here. We live right next to Celery Bog, and the Lilly Nature Center and all of those things. I would probably take the bond and reinvest it into the park system, because one thing that happens when you have a densification like we're having in the downtown is you need to have green space for people to be there, right? If you have a bunch of people in one area but you don't have amenities for them, they're not going to be very happy, and your progress is going to stop. So I would reinvest it so that we could have more green space in the downtown area, like the new riverfront project that's going to be happening soon for the park that's right there. That would be my answer. I'd spend on the parks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wang.
$1 million is a lot of money. Also, in some sense, for a city of West Lafayette, it's not enough money. I worked with a lot of community block grants when I was a judge, warning that agencies are always hurting. I would like to see that $1 million, if the city got it, go to worthy organizations in the community, West Lafayette, that serve the people, that might need financial help to build that extra addition, room, whatever, to bring in more staff, to help initiate more programs. But that would be a vital start for them. The problem with how do we sustain that? $1 million to start, and that the problem is how do we keep it? But I think if we learn to divide it among the community organizations, civic organizations, that would be a good way to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. Okay, on to our large candidates. Not as easy as the last one. Here's the question. We begin with James Blanco on this question. The question is, do you think the State Street redevelopment project has been successful? If you do, what has made it successful? And if you don't, what would you change?
I think it's a complicated question, yes and no. Yes, it has been successful in the sense that it has provided more venues for, say, bike riders and such, for example. But it has, in some ways, not been successful in the sense that traffic is definitely more of a problem down State Street than it would have been. If I had been able to develop it, I would, the important thing about it would be, I would say, pedestrian safety. That is what I would say would be my main issue.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sanders, you're next on this one.
So I believe the State Street project is successful in terms of the goals that it had set out to achieve. I do believe actually that pedestrian safety has been enhanced by the project. I will say as a member of the Traffic Commission that I am very concerned about the increase in traffic, the traffic congestion that occurs specifically because of the way the streets have been reorganized, and particularly at what we now have, which is a rush hour between 4:30 and 6. So, and it's something that I'm actively working on and advocating for changes to those traffic patterns, because I know we just did them, but it's a trial. Traffic is something that you plan, and then you try to figure out, is there another way to do it once you have the results in. I will say that I'm concerned about the lack of affordable housing, that there was incomplete planning for affordable housing as part of the State Street project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see, Mr. Thomas, you're next on this one. No, Mr. Thomas.
I would have to say that State Street development has been successful. I think it has accomplished the goals that were set out for the State Street. I remember coming here to Purdue in '78 as a Purdue, hang on a second, as a recruit here at Purdue, and looking at State Street back in '74, I thought it was the most ugly, rundown area that I had ever seen. And I thought, this is Purdue University. This is amazing. So what we've done with State Street, I think, has been very, very important. Development that is brought into the city for State Street has been very good. Purdue's not in the business of building dorms. They're in the business of educating students. And as many students as they're going to bring in the next few years, they're going to rely on Purdue or West Lafayette to find housing for them. So we need to find affordable housing, continue to build development where it makes sense, and that's my answer.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. We will wrap up this round with Steve Dietrich.
Thank you. I have to agree that the project of State Street was a success, what it was designed to do. I certainly believe that pedestrian safety has been enhanced. It's taken away from the street. It's increased in width. We've separated the bikes and other scooters and other cycles from the main traffic flow. There is a little bit of congestion in it, although I think people will start to realize 231 will get them there as well if they take it out and come back around. It's sometimes quicker to come back around there, and that's not a bad thing if you can reroute traffic through the heart of that. I don't think we've seen the benefits yet of the completion. I think what Purdue's got going on out in the airport area and the districts coming in, we're still going to reap benefits from the jobs they're bringing in and everything else. So I think it's yet to be determined, or even more successful as time goes by. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you'll allow me a personal note, after 25 years in Washington, D.C., this traffic looks pretty good to me. So at this time, I'm going to remind everybody that if they're interested in submitting a question, because this is all about you guys and your questions, you can text it to EJ500. Again, that's E Jones 500 to 37607. Correct? Okay. Okay. Round 3. So we're going to circle back to the first group again: Sydney Rivera, Nick Bohr, and Peter Bunder. Here's your question. You have talked about some of the important things that are important to you about this city and what the challenges that are facing it. But what is, for you, beginning with Ms. Rivera, the most important challenge facing the city, and how do you propose to address it?
Thank you. Those most questions are tough. It's hard to pick one thing. I feel like I've already discussed the housing issue at length. I do feel that is extremely important to students, but I also think that continued collaboration with Purdue University is an important issue for students as well as for local residents, and there's a lot of opportunity there. As I mentioned, there's a new student outreach clinic being developed by medical students and Purdue professional students, which I think is a great opportunity for us as students to help serve our greater Lafayette community. So I think working on that collaboration would be a really great opportunity. Another opportunity for collaborating with Purdue would be creating a portal where Purdue researchers could more easily recruit community members to participate in their studies. I think that would be great for members of the community finding out about ongoing research and taking advantage of some of those research incentives, while also being able to help the researchers out with that research that Purdue is known for globally.
Thank you. Nick Deboer, same question.
Yeah, the most challenging aspect facing District 1 at least, and we've said it before, but It's this cycle of the rents going up and being unable to actually get it down. And part of that is because the vacancy rate is 0.8%. It's that high because there are so many people who want to live in West Lafayette, particularly in the district. It's a good challenge to have. Unfortunately, those of us who already live there are paying the price for it. The rents are going up because there's a huge community of housing outside of District 1 right now, right? If you go out to Walmart, you drive that direction, ton of housing out there. But it makes it tough to get to class, makes it tough to build community, makes it tough to have a good time on the weekends, right? And so being able to actually concentrate nightlife, being able to concentrate jobs, being able to concentrate ideas in densifying the area through 16-story buildings, through more of them, will allow us to have more restaurants, more bars, more of the things that create community. I look forward to redeveloping the library in the area, too. I think that's going to be really awesome.
Okay, thank you. We move to District 2 now. Peter Bunder.
Thank you. What's the biggest challenge in the city? How to maintain some sense of community. What the older residents in the city miss and what they're frightened by in this densification of downtown is the disappearance of some sense of community. And that is a real challenge for the mayor and for city council to preserve. We try and do that by enhancing the neighborhoods, by concentrating on the neighborhoods, and by trying to identify the strengths of each one of the neighborhoods. I live in a multi-class, multi-generational, near-campus neighborhood that is the entry point for many folk who are buying their first home in West Lafayette. We can do it fairly easily. We have front porches, and most of the people walk to work. But that's the nostalgia, that's the memory. How do you preserve that? How do you expand on that community that is the promise of a university town? It's a real challenge for this city.
Moving on to District 3. Another question for you, beginning with you, Mr. Jones. What will you do to support an economy that benefits students, other West Lafayette residents, and businesses in our area? Let me just repeat that question. I bungled it a little bit. What will you do to support an economy that benefits students, other West Lafayette residents, and businesses in our area?
So I think that one way that you can benefit all three is if students are able to better afford their apartments, they have more disposable income to spend at businesses. And I've spoken prior about how I want to increase development as well of businesses that are oriented towards students. And that not only just benefits the students, but it provides a business opportunity for residents here that live in the community in West Lafayette to open up new businesses, employ new local people, adults, older people, not just students, to work at those businesses and make some money. The reality is part of the problem with the affordability question. One way to make things cheaper is by going up, but that only makes it so much cheaper in terms of building a 16-story building because it's kind of expensive to build a skyscraper. Land is very expensive in District 1 and around the area of downtown that's close to campus. The only land that's left really to develop is in the Historic Preservation District that's right on the edge of campus. I'm not saying get rid of all of the Historic Preservation District, but on my street, because I live there, 617 Evergreen, there's not one student or not one house that's not a student rental. It's part of my neighbors, and I don't see why we can't build a new high-density, affordable rental housing there. That's not a skyscraper. So
thank you. Shannon Kang.
In terms of businesses, I definitely have thought, oh my God, I would really love a Trader Joe's here, or, I'm so happy that a Target's coming. But I think a lot of, someone mentioned that having a Trader Joe's here probably might not happen, but just expressing to the students that it can't happen and just explaining to them, or trying to listen to them and say, okay, what do you guys want? What do you guys need? And then us as a council trying to execute those ideas, I think is extremely important. And a lot of the students need to be excited for economic development. A lot of students need to be for economic development. Imagine having, more bars for everyone who is of age, or having really cool restaurants, trendy restaurants, maybe a vegan restaurant. I feel like we just need to appeal to the large audience that we already have, and these students just need to be a lot more excited to see businesses, and we need to hear the input too.
Thank you. We move on to District 5 and a question for our two candidates from there. John Meyers, you will be the first to answer this question. Purdue and the city of West Lafayette often work together. However, Purdue's choices can occasionally overrule the city's desires, like those pertaining to scooter policy and housing. How do you cultivate the city's relationship with Purdue while still maintaining an authoritative role?
I'm not sure what to do with a question like that. I'm not sure it's our objective to maintain an authoritative role. And the scooter policy, I have friends who shouldn't like them, but do like scooters, and so I'm being educated on that. I just don't have enough extra elbows to ride them, so, because I can't spare any. But the challenge with Purdue is not a challenge. It's simply a continuing working relationship. We have to be respectful, we have to be engaged, and we have to understand that there's no greater asset to our community than Purdue, and that relationship has to be cultivated. It can't be one of antagonism. It doesn't mean we have to agree on everything. Certainly we're not going to. We've heard people talk today. We've got a lot of very bright, informed people up here, and I haven't agreed with everything I've heard, although I'm willing to say that people I disagree with are probably right rather than me. That's showing respect. But nevertheless, I don't think we're looking for an authoritative relationship with Purdue. We're looking for friendship, cooperation, collegial and congenial relationships.
Kathy Parker, how do you look at this?
I agree. I don't think that we are in charge of Purdue, but Purdue is part of the city of West Lafayette, and so compromise is going to be necessary. Scooters are fun. Students love them. They're environmentally friendly, but they do need to be stored properly so that people don't get hurt. And there are people on Purdue's campus that face challenges as well. So making sure that we take care of the scooters helps everybody. It's not either or. It's both of us together. I think that just listening to perspectives of everybody and trying to find compromise is the way to go. It doesn't have to be an us versus them. It's all of us together. Thank you.
Thank you. We go to district number 6 now. Gentlemen, this is a question about prioritization. Mr. Bohlin, you'll be the first one to take this question. The question says, how do you prioritize redevelopment projects, such as the plans for redeveloping New and Old Chauncey versus the recent redevelopment of Discovery Park? How do you prioritize?
So you kind of go with where the people are and where the most bang for your buck is. It's the optimization problem. As an industrial engineer, we tackle optimization a lot. It's what you get the most return from. For our district, for example, we need to do redevelopment along 52 because most of the things in our district is empty fields. But the city has a limited budget. There's limited bonds to be able to develop these things. So we need to take our district in particular takes a pause for that because the main potential for growth is in the downtown area. So they're the ones that get that's the area that gets developed first because it's being smart with your money. You wouldn't invest in something that gives a 1% return when you have the option to invest in something that gives a 7% return. You'd invest in the 7% return first. Thank you.
Thank you. Norris Wang.
Thank you. Our district is, as Austin mentioned, had a lot of empty land. Prioritizing what comes first and what comes second is basically a balancing act. Right now, I see in our district we're going to have some problems. Hopefully not, but I see some problems coming along the 231 bypass. How are we going to develop it? We don't want it to turn into another 26 where we have all these businesses, huge traffic amounts. Going to be a bleed on from the state, from Highway 26 State Street into that, also from 52. So it's important that we take long-term planning. We regulate the growth. A lot of that land owned by the city, but part of it's also run by Purdue too. So it's going to be a balancing act. I like to see us impact the people that it's going to affect mostly. I think Discovery Park probably should take like a more priority than New Chauncey because that's going to bring in jobs, it's going to bring in housing. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. We go to our at-large candidates. Mr. Sanders, you'll be the first to take this question. Here's your question. Purdue is known for trying new things: scooters, food robots, e-bikes, and more. The city has worked with Purdue to allow pilots of many programs, often swiftly. How do you strike a balance between being innovative while considering existing code and future problems?
I don't actually think that being innovative per se is an objective. I believe that doing the right thing, doing something that's appropriate for the community at large, is what we need to do. I want to circle back on some of the questions that other people were addressing because it is relevant. First thing is, I'm one of the people who, in fact, both works on shared governance at Purdue as well as city council. So I'm really best positioned to deal with these issues of how does Purdue impact on the community and how does the community impact on Purdue. The housing problem that we face is in large part due to the ever-increasing enrollment at Purdue University. And I don't think that the city has made its voice heard loudly enough about the problems associated with that increased enrollment. I have myself made my voice heard on that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Next, Mr. Blanco is going to be next. And again, the question is, how do you strike the balance between being innovative while considering existing code and future problems?
It's a matter of the goals. So we want to be moving forward as a community, but we also want to make sure that what we're doing is not endangering people, such as the scooters were a problem, especially for disabled people. So that is it's an issue that we want to make sure that it's not only moving forward in terms of pure technology, it is moving forward in terms of the human element. That we're talking about, we want to make people's lives better, so we want to move forward in technology. We have our smartphones, we have all these things. We just need to make sure that they do not impinge on our community, that they actually can enhance it and improve it.
Thank you, Mr. Dietrich. This is yours next.
Your first decision on any of this has got to be based on public and personal safety. Tying in, I'm like Dr. Sanders. I would love to jump in on some of the other questions that were asked, but I think that a couple things come into play with this. The increase in freshman class, I think, is a great thing for our community. Yeah, it presents a couple options into that, but it also gives us some great opportunities. When we look at living in a campus community, my wife and I were on campus and just reveling at what the difference it is in living in a city with a major university in it versus some of the others. That's what goes with it. I think the robot food service is kind of silly, but it's part of being on campus. It's part of the aura that comes with it. I think you take that. Getting along with the university, the scooter policy that we passed, the university virtually passed the same thing. They pretty much put their name on top of it. So there is a symbiotic relationship that I think is necessary, and I think you base everything else on safety.
Thank you, Mr. Dietrich. And finally, Mr. Thomas.
It's amazing and great that we have a major research university in the city of West Lafayette that is working on innovative ideas and new ideas to maybe hope to take that to market and hopefully to benefit not only our city but our state and our country. We need to partner with Purdue University on a lot of areas and what they're doing and what West Lafayette is doing as a city. The West Lafayette, we propose ordinances, obviously for safety purposes and other ordinances, and we need that partnership with Purdue that they understand what the ordinances are, what the safety issues are, and hopefully that everyone understands moving forward and we work together jointly to do great things here. So,
thank you, sir. On to round 4. This is the last round of questions that were previously planned by the folks at the Purdue Exponent and those who were sponsoring this event, and then we will go to the questions from the audience. Back to first group. The question is for the three of you, Nick Bohr, Sydney Rivera, and Peter Bunder. The question is, parts of West Lafayette are still classified as food deserts. How can the city ensure new food retail businesses bring vitality along with affordable prices for consumers? Mr. Deboer.
Yeah, that's a huge issue. I was fighting when they closed a grocery store on Northwestern for a long time. It's how I got my food, and I couldn't get it anymore, and it sucked. I'm very happy that there are delivery services, but those are expensive. You can't force a grocery store to open, though, right? So what you have to think about is whether there can be economic incentives for something like that. It's very difficult to give a tax break to a rental, though, right? So the big problem with the grocery store on Northwestern was they were leasing out, and the lease was really, really expensive. Why was the lease really expensive? Well, there wasn't a lot of places to put a grocery store. And that goes back to the problem I've been talking about all night. We need to build more offices. We need to build more areas for places to go into so that the rent on those places, they will go down and people won't be gouged for them. I am optimistic about the target that's going up in my district. That should start solving some of these problems, at least some access problems. Affordability problems are going to come with the overall affordability strategy of building more.
Thank you. Sydney Rivera.
This is a very important issue to me as well, especially given my background in public health. And I think that the Target is a great opportunity, but I do have some concerns. It's not the cheapest grocery store. I don't normally shop there myself if I have other choices. So I do think we need to consider looking at how we can get other options into that area. And I have seen the struggle of students who don't have cars living in the downtown area. And now with the Fresh Market closed, it's really difficult. So we really need to bring more into the downtown area. And I also think that expanding the land that we are using. The problem, as has been said, is that in that downtown area, leases can be very expensive, so we need to consider expanding the area in which we are building, and that does mean moving into some of the space in the Historic Preservation District, considering redrawing those boundaries so that grocery stores and large businesses like that do have space to grow, and so that we can bring more affordable options within walking distance for students.
Thank you. Mr. Bunder, as the only representative from District 2, you get to be the first and the last candidate to speak for District 2 every time. So it's your turn now. Go ahead.
That's kind of fun, isn't it? Just be the first one. Retail is in turmoil in the United States of America. Why? Because we have all sorts of options for delivery. We have all sorts of options for maximizing our personal budgets by getting what is cheapest. And this is not just a question for grocery stores in our town. It is a question for every other commercial entity, except perhaps for bars that we've tried to encourage to come here. The solution, I don't know what the solution is. A larger population, probably. And if we could find a developer who had an interest in recruiting those kinds of businesses, we would certainly be willing to help that person with his development.
On to District 3, Shannon Kang, you'll be first to take this question. The question is this: how do you plan to involve residents who aren't currently active in the decision-making process in our city? Involvement.
Oh, I like that question. Okay. I think a lot of what I'm doing for my campaign is just I understand that I go to a STEM school. I'm not a STEM major, so I understand the struggle, and having every other person say they're in engineering and don't have any political interest really breaks my heart. So one of the really big things that I want to do is just be on social media and spill it all. Like if I go to a meeting and there's something that has to do with STEM students, then I hope that they will be concerned about it, and I hope that they can trust me enough to be their source of information and be the person for them to come to with their concerns. And it is a really big issue, like I said, that I want more people to be more politically active, but I understand that it's not for everyone. But I just want to be that friendly face, the friendly politician that you see just walking around campus.
John Jones.
Yeah, so this is a difficult issue, and like Shannon, it breaks my heart when I see students not care at all about our political process. I think a multi-pronged approach on this is needed, but the thing I want to emphasize is that it's important for each and every one of us who are actively involved in the democratic process by nature, if you're here this evening, to take it upon yourself to try to get the people you know that are not involved in the process involved through that personal connection that you already have with them. When I was here at Purdue as an undergrad student, I served as vice president of the student body, and I did my best to try to promote democratic involvement through the student government. And now on the other side, in the city council, last year I met with the student body president 3 times, and I plan on meeting with the student body president that's currently in office to try to build that connection between the city and those student voices. But really it takes personal connection to get people involved because anybody in student government will tell you it's very difficult to engage the students through student government that aren't already engaged in student government without personal connection. So it's the responsibility is on each of us.
Thank you. Okay, on to District 5, and Kathy Parker, you'll take this question next. Chauncey Hill Mall. Okay, there was a redevelopment plan. The city council rejected it because they didn't identify a need for more student housing. Now the businesses renting space in Chauncey Mall are in limbo while waiting for a new proposal. Do you think this was avoidable?
Could you repeat that for me?
Sure.
I'm not sure it's true.
Oh, okay. So Trinitas Ventures proposed a redevelopment plan for Chauncey Hill Mall, but the city council rejected it. That's not true. Then that's not a good question. Thank you very much. What we will do is flip and come back to you two with a new question. Emily, could we get a new question then? I'll go on and come back. Okay, here's a question for the District 6 candidates. The recent closing of the 24-hour recycling center angered many West Lafayette residents. What are your views on this issue? Austin Bohlin, you start first. I'm sorry, I meant for District 6.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. So, the recent closing of the 24-hour recycling center angered many West Lafayette residents. What are your views on this issue?
So, the environmentalist in me wants to say that recycling is one of the most important things that you can do. The difficult part is you need to make recycling economically viable, otherwise cities can't do it. Recycling is a major problem at the moment for a lot of Midwest cities because it costs more money than we can get to have the programs to a point where it runs us really low. I don't know if that's the case here. I would like to see us find money in our budget to be able to keep the recycling plants open, especially because that's such a great thing for our city. Our city prides itself on our sustainability, and I think we should enact our policies that reflect that, and our money should reflect that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bohlin. Mr. Wang.
Thank you. The recycling program here in West Lafayette actually was closed because the West Lafayette City streets needed more room, more building space. And at the time that we were operating a drop-off site, really what it was, the county actually runs it in conjunction with Lafayette and the city of West Lafayette. It was really a decision that we all hated to see because people recycle. West Lafayette is a leader, I like to think, of a city of our size in getting our recyclables out. We are constantly looking for alternatives, but it has not stopped curbside recycling. We still have that. We still have all our city buildings and facilities have recycling containers out and everything too. I like us to see steps further go for recycling. I like to see us go into a paperless society, and that files are kept electronically, and people can look up things. That would reduce paperwork, and that would reduce problems with paper recycle. But I see my time is up, so
okay, thank you very much. We're going to jump back to District 5 now. We got a new question for you. And again, Kathy Parker, you'll take this first. If you could change one thing in the zoning code, what would it be and why?
Okay, well, the zoning code is subject to change, right? So when somebody wants to add an addition onto a building, they go before the area planning commission or they go before the city council, and that's how that happens. So the zoning is constantly changing as the needs of the community change. So I don't really think that that's something that needs to change. I think that that just changes with the time.
Are there not certain codes that the city goes by in terms of their zoning?
Well, they have codes, but then they can rewrite that. They can rezone. That happens.
Okay,
so.
Mr. Meyers, how would you answer that question?
All right. We're all set. I love technology. I'm having problems with this microphone because I can't read the word "on" with my glasses right now. But I guess that's a problem. But I can't wait for the new iPhones to come out, things like that. So I love technology. Zoning is a particular problem as it addresses the affordability problem we've been talking about tonight. We've heard several people up here talk about it. Zoning is one of those things. It's a restriction, basically, on the use on land use, and as such, if land is over-restricted, then it raises prices, and it makes property less affordable in terms of rental property, things of that sort. And so we have that problem. When I was in law school and I was in college, I lived in houses that were divided up. I didn't have a car, so I understand this fully because I've contended with it in my life. So what we have here is, in part, a historic preservation problem. We also have generally a zoning problem in which the zoning is not reflecting the reality on the ground, and that is can't be said in 5 seconds. So, sorry.
Thank you. Could you take the microphone over to Mr. Thomas, please? He actually has the next question. Thank you. We're in the at-large candidates now. The question is this. In 2016, West Lafayette Mayor Dennis signed on to the mayor's climate agreement, which commits West Lafayette to reducing the city's greenhouse gas emissions. Do you agree with this commitment? If not, why? And if so, what more do you believe the city could do to reduce its carbon footprint?
I applaud the mayor for signing on to that climate agreement. It's important that we start to address the greenhouse emissions issue in our country and in our state and our city. I think we can do more as a city as far as sustainability of new buildings and new development. We need to certainly encourage bicycle riding, walking to classes, walking to work. Scooters, electric scooters, again, I don't have a problem with them. They again, don't have a carbon footprint. So I would hope more people would take advantage of that city bus, riding buses to work instead of driving your car. We have a lot of things that we can do as a city to try and improve the carbon footprint. So again, applaud Mayor Dennis for signing on to the agreement, and hopefully we can do more as a city going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. David Sanders, you're next on this.
I certainly agree with the mayor's action. My 20-year political career has been focused on trying to bring attention to the issue of climate change and to prevent global warming. I'll mention just two things. One is that I've been pushing the city to make sure that developments by the city include electric car charging stations. I happen to own an electric car, so that would be an advantage for me personally, but I think it's something that we need to be moving for in terms of our city fleet should be moving towards an electric fleet. But I want to talk about recycling, because I do think that we need to be thinking deeply about that. The recycling climate has changed. Single stream recycling was never a good idea. It was always a failed approach. I think we need to get away from that and have an education program, both for the city and for Purdue, on the advantage of multi-stream recycling. Thank you.
Mr. Blanco goes next.
I applaud the mayor for signing that agreement to try to push us toward carbon neutrality. The very first thing that I would push for is actually making city bus fare free for everyone, because there have been similar programs in cities throughout the country and throughout the world that have been a remarkable success. They've been increased bus usage even among people who have cars. For example, in Columbus, Ohio, they they put in a program where people working in the downtown area could ride the buses for free, and 90% of the people who used that program had their own cars. So it has been shown to reduce car usage, and that would actually not only reduce our carbon emissions, it would improve road safety, pedestrian safety, and it would reduce traffic. It would help make it easier. So that was what I would push to reduce carbon emissions in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Blanco. Mr. Dietrich, you wrap this up for us.
Well, I'd be pretty silly to come out against that decision, wouldn't I? I certainly do applaud the mayor. I think this is one of many innovative and positive decisions that John has done in his interim. I think that going forward, I know that Street Commissioner Ben Anderson is working hard, developing new methods of recycling, ways that they can improve the situation. Norris is exactly right. The closure there was not a move by the city to change any altering behaviors on recycling. It was simply a matter of the city has grown enough that they needed places to take their equipment and they needed to build on that spot. It was never designed to be a permanent spot. It was a loan to the Tippecanoe County spot. So it's not that the city is backward or backpedaling on recycling by any means. I think that Mayor Dennis and his staff has done a nice job, and it continues to go into it. We're looking at building new buildings. The new rec center is built with energy conservation in mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we have this one last round of questions, and then you'll each have a minute for your wrap-up. And these are the questions that came in from the audience. We go, again, first to Districts 1 and 2. And Sydney Rivera, you'll take this question first. This is a classic C-SPAN question. I love it. As a representative of your district, what methods will you use to effectively engage with your constituents?
Oh, this is a really fun one. I've already had a great opportunity to get started on this with my campaign. So I have really enjoyed promoting via my social media, through my Instagram and Facebook platforms. I've always thought about, trying to get out and promote causes I care about in a meaningful way with some reach. And this has given me a great opportunity to do that. So that's been really fun. And I've also just been out, talking to people in my district, and it's great to hear about their concerns in person. It's not a huge swath of land, so it is doable to be involved with your constituents, I believe, and beyond my district, my connections through Purdue also provide a lot of opportunity for me as a student representing students to make sure that I'm connecting with them and hearing their voice. That is actually one of the things that I'm most excited to do, and that's why so many of the things that I want to do on City Council involve, collaborations between Purdue and the city.
Thank you. Mr. Deboer, your method of communication.
Sure. You can reach out in any kind of way, and I'll come to the events. The strange thing is the constituents who elected me 4 years ago, most of them are gone now. And there's a new set of people every single cycle in District 1. About 90% of the district is student population. And you have to make that effort every year, and to build those bridges across them. But when I do talk to those individuals, what they don't say is, I don't think the city council is doing something right? They don't even know the city council exists or what we're doing. So I think that there's a larger kind of view that needs to be taken here about what their needs are and how we can address them. That goes to the things we've been talking about tonight, like grocery stores. It goes to housing affordability. It comes down to trying to make sure that they can graduate with less debt, right? The things that they're actually worried about is, man, I'm going to have to pay off $50,000 over the next 10, 20 years. How am I going to start a family? How am I going to buy a house? And those are the conversations I have with my constituents every day, and we'll be working to try to address those problems over the next 4 years.
Thank you. Peter Bunder.
The most successful way I've ever had of reaching my constituents is to walk my dog, but that's probably not an enlightened answer. You knock on doors, you talk to people. It's very hard for me to do. Political candidates are supposed to go door to door. That's somewhere in the small print of the application to run for an office. If I do that, it takes hours. Why? Because I've known these people for 30 years. I've known their kids have known my kids. The issues that are part of the life of the New Chauncey neighborhood have been the same issues that they have faced for 30 years. And their expectation is I will be able to explain to them what the is going on. And that takes time. People are not alert to city government. They don't spend a lot of time reflecting on it. We always get elected in an off year. That conversation is the way that I do this job.
Thank you. On to District 3. Here's the question the audience has for the two of you. And Mr. Jones, you'll take this first. How would you improve ADA accessibility on the sidewalks around campus? For example, the damaged and removed sidewalks.
So, are you talking specifically on Purdue campus?
It does say Purdue campus.
Okay. So, the sidewalks on Purdue campus is kind of an interesting area where city authority overlaps with Purdue University authority, and so that one will definitely take collaboration with Purdue. When I was in student government at Purdue, this is something that we directed the Committee on Sustainability to take a specific look at the ADA accessibility issues that were facing our campus. To be frank, there were glaring issues with several of the buildings on campus that seemingly met ADA accessibility federal guidelines on surface level, but in reality were still by no means truly accessible. And so what I would do is I would continue to engage student government because I think that they are a great group of students that are passionate and are constantly working. I'm no longer in student government because I graduated in 2018 from Purdue and now I'm a medical student. But I, still here a part of this community, and that collaboration I think is key. And we'll have to work with the Purdue administration in order to make sure that these things get implemented and improved.
Thank you, Shannon Kang.
Yes, as John was saying, Purdue Student Government will play a huge role in this. And I've mentioned before, I am currently in Purdue Student Government, so I'm not afraid to talk to people. I'm friends with the president and vice president. I will happily work with them to improve the situations on the sidewalks and also the administration. I have never met Mitch Daniels, but I would love to meet him one day. So given an opportunity that I can make a positive impact on Purdue's campus is something that I am happily willing to take.
Thank you. On to District 5. And the question from the audience for the two of you, beginning with you, John Meyers. Would you vote to add more electric charging stations for electric vehicles around campus and around the city?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker.
Okay. I would absolutely agree to do that. That's environmentally friendly, and as I've said, everybody on the planet needs to get on board with that. And electric cars are becoming more and more common, and they need a place to charge.
Thank you. We go on to District 6. We will begin with you, Mr. Bohlin. Here's the question. What would you do to make immigrants feel more welcome?
That's a good question. I know there was work done on a resolution to make. I believe David Sanders was the one that authored that one to open up the city as welcoming immigrants. From a city perspective, I suppose just keeping the same tone that we always have in similar resolutions to the one that Representative Sanders passed, making sure that everyone knows that we do care about our immigrants, especially with Purdue University being a large portion of international students. We need to make sure that they know that they're very important to our community and that they're always welcome here regardless of what the circumstances are. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wang.
Thank you. I am the son of an immigrant. My parents came to the United States after the Second World War. My mother was actually a war refugee during the Second World War in China. She had to disguise herself as a boy. So I know what it was like for them, because when the communists took over, they had to start all over again. No money, cut off from their parents. So I understand that coming to a new country like the United States, for them, was a big big change. Making them feel welcome is probably one of the biggest things that you could do. Any immigrant, no matter what the country they come from, China, Mexico, Europe, always look for us at the land of opportunities. We need to extend to them to show them how much the United States, its citizen, and our government can help them to be a success here. And my folks made it. I like to think they taught me the values, and I appreciate the United States of America very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dietrich, you'll take this question first. And the audience question is this. Our community is in desperate need of robust mental health services, especially with CAPS being underfunded. What will you do to address this need?
First, let me state the obvious, that CAPS certainly is underfunded. We have a strong NAMI organization in this community that also could use funding and resources and everything else. This problem from my life as a law enforcement officer, we see it every day. The number of not only homeless that are suffering from that, but even students on campus suffer and exposed from that. This is not a problem you can throw money at. This is not a finance issue. This is something that's got to be in the grassroots part of it. I don't know that you can legislate your way out of this one. There's just no good answer, or we would already have the problem solved. We continue to support the programs that we can and hope that it works, but there just doesn't seem to be a definitive answer in this.
Mike goes next to Mr. Thomas.
Certainly, mental health issues are prevalent in our community, as any other community. These people need help, and unfortunately, there isn't enough help for them. And as Councilor Dietrich said, throwing money at it is great, but that's not going to totally solve the problem. And we need to, as a community, come together as a grassroots, as he said, issue, and figure out ways to figure out how to help them overcome their issues. It is a troubling issue, and again, we just as a community need to come together.
Mr. Sanders.
And address it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So, as chair of the Student Affairs Committee, I've actually solicited the input from students. This is the first time that student government is in fact supplying the student members of the committee, and I've been trying to address their priorities. And their top three priorities included student mental health, food insecurity, and housing. And in terms of the mental health issue, it is a resource issue, and it's a Purdue resource issue. There is simply not enough investment by Purdue in CAPS and associated mental health services. So I would, again, just use my voice, both as a city councilman and as a member of the Senate, to encourage Purdue to actually put in more expenditure into mental health. And I believe that those other issues, the pressures of lack of affordable housing and food insecurity, play into and cause increased problems with mental health as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Mr. Blanco.
I would echo a lot of the sentiments of Councilor Sanders and say that it is not just a head issue, it's a whole body issue. If you're struggling to pay your rent, to deal with classes, to do all these things, to get a job after graduation, that's going to take a toll on your mental health. I would say yes, push Purdue to put more resources into mental health, but also, in addition, we would work with groups such as United Way to help build that connection, because it's an issue of connection, and it's also an issue of people becoming isolated. They feel all these issues coming at them, so we want to help them. So we want to help work with these organizations to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Blanco. Okay, big deep breath. We're in the final run here. It's time for your 1 minute closing statements. We would ask that you keep them to a minute, and we will give you your time cues as they are. You can address any issues that you want to in there. Since we started over here, we will start with Mr. Blanco for his closing statement first.
So I'm James Blanco, and I'm running to be your voice on the City Council. You're a student, you're a renter, you're a member of the community. I'm running to be your voice on the City Council. I want to make, for example, city bus fare free because it's actually, one, it would improve our city's carbon emissions, but two, it's actually an affordable program to do. It would be we would work with the city of Lafayette, with Purdue, and a variety of other actors, and it would be a fairly small portion of our city's budget, while it would improve road safety, reduce carbon emissions, reduce injuries to pedestrians. But beyond that, I want to fight to help people who rent. I want to help make sure that apartments are not only affordable, but they are high quality, and they're safe, and they're in good maintenance. So I want to stick up for you in the City Council. I'm James Blanco.
Mr. Blanco, thank you. Gerald Thomas is next.
I had the pleasure of sitting last week at the naturalization ceremony on Purdue in West Lafayette, and 98 new citizens were naturalized in that ceremony from 38 different countries. And I sat next to the lady who was the head of the Social Security Administration in the city. And we got to get into a conversation about, the quality of life in West Lafayette. And we talked about, we've gone to travel to different cities in the world, and it all boiled down to, again, the quality of life issue. We were talking about where we want to retire. Well, when we finished the conversation, it came down to, man, West Lafayette is really a pretty neat city to be in. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot that you can engage in, and take a picnic to Happy Hollow Park, to walk on the trails of 40-plus miles. Just a beautiful city. And I again, want to do what I can to continue to make West Lafayette the greatest city that we can make it.
That's Gerald Thomas. Next comes David Sanders.
I'm interested in continuing to be your councilman in order to protect the vulnerable, to make sure that we have sustainable development, to make sure that the character of West Lafayette is preserved, to make sure that students as renters have their rights protected, and that the people of West Lafayette have an environment that is safe and rewarding. I believe that we, as a city, are moving in the right direction, but it's important to have people who pay attention to how every dollar is spent and how every new development, what is its impact going to be on the community. And finally, I think it's important to have someone who wants to ensure transparency in government operations and communication between government and the citizens of West Lafayette.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders, and now Steve Dietrich.
Thank you. I bring to the council a strong belief in West Lafayette and exceptional analytical skills. My career as an investigator has taught me to break down large problems into smaller, more solvable parts and put them back together again using innovative solutions. Will continue to be a champion of good economic development and safety and security. West Lafayette is a safe community, but we need to stay vigilant and continue to provide adequate resources to public safety. More needs to be done to enforce current ordinances dealing with student rentals to increase fire and personal safety, as well as reducing neighborhood infringement. I grew up in Peter Bunder's district. I grew up in New Chauncey as a kid. I've been here all my life. I've seen some of the issues they deal with and struggle with. There are several things that make West Lafayette a great place to live. The award-winning schools, strong neighborhoods, but in many respects, West Lafayette is a world-class city because of the relationship with Purdue University. We need to continue to increase and increase that symbiotic relationship. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dietrich. Those four who just spoke are for the at-large seats, and we will go now to District 6 And Mr. Bohlin, Austin Bohlin, will begin.
I'm Austin Bohlin. I'd like to ask for your support come this election. I'd like to focus on making sure that apartments are safe and rent is low, as well as someone who would be living in the area. I'd like to focus on making sure that single-family homes are taken care of as well. I'm going to take some time to not talk about myself, but talk about one of the issues that hasn't really been brought up here today, and that's voter turnout. So I don't know if you know, but municipal elections historically have extraordinarily low voter turnout. And I don't have to convince anyone in the audience to go vote tonight because that's why you're here. But I would like to convince you to talk to your friends about it. Bring it up in conversation. Ask them if they're registered to vote. You don't have to make it political, but it's important that you talk to them about getting engaged in the process so that we can have a more engaged populace in civic discourse. So I'd like to end with a plea to talk to people about registering to vote and getting to know the issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wang.
Thank you. During my 10 years as judge, one thing I've learned about people was that people in court, especially in court, they just want to be heard. They want someone to listen to them. And I tried to do that every time I had a case, no matter how serious or how trivial it was, but I gave them the respect. And one thing I found also about being on the city council is people want to be heard too. They want to make sure that the city leaders, their council members, hear what they have to say, how they agree or disagree, and I want to hear it too. That's kind of been my motto. And I'd like to take this opportunity to share with you that we are looking at the future here in West Lafayette. State Street turned out to be so fantastic. I never dreamed it would be look so great. I like to see that continue. The city has continued to grow, and I want to be a part of it. For that reason, I'm asking for your help to vote for me. And finally, I'd like to thank the Purdue Vote Coalition and the society, the members, for having us here tonight. I appreciate that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. We move to District 5 next. Kathy Parker.
Thank you. Tonight you've heard a little bit from a lot of people vying to be your city councilors. West Lafayette is a diverse, welcoming community where we can experience the customs and traditions from around the world right here in this place. We have 40,000 brilliant minds right here at Purdue working on solving problems, and not to mention bringing new businesses and new technologies within this 5-mile radius. But with economic growth comes some growing pains. So we need a team of people who is willing to listen and solve problems together by making compromises. Thank you again to Purdue Votes and all of the partnering groups that sponsored tonight's forum. It's my hope that we have provided you with a glimpse into our vision for the city. I look forward to listening to your concerns. Above all else, I echo what Norris said about listening to constituents. That's the most important part of being a city councilor. So have a great night, and don't forget to vote, and don't forget to tell your friends to vote as well.
Thank you, Kathy Parker. We go next to John Meyers.
Thank you. My view of this is that we have a great city, and since Mayor Dennis has been the mayor, it's been on an upward trajectory and will continue that way because we've got a fabulous mayor. I've been involved in government now for 50 years, and I've seen really great participants in government, and John Dennis is one of the best. Another great one is sitting back there, Sue Scholler, who's the leader of my campaign, and Sue was one of the leaders of our state government for many years and our local government. There are lots of great people who come from this community, and our city is blessed with leaders of that sort. I've been involved for many years. I've created a number of programs. I created the first domestic violence program. I led the community effort to get a juvenile court. I've helped create programs for domestic violence, mental illness, addictions, against sexual violence, any number of things. It's been so long I've forgotten all the things I've been involved in. And I think that experience working with all levels of government, private and public agencies, lends itself to the city council, and I think Mayor Dennis thinks as well because he urged me to run.
Thank you. That was District 5, and now we move to District 3. Shannon Kang first.
Yes. My name is Shannon Kang, and I value you. I genuinely do. I want the things that I do to reflect the things that you want, and I feel like the best way for me to do that is by doing what I already do. I'm a student, and I'm here, and I want to be active in my community, and that is why I'm running for office. And just by being an active student, I can act as a liaison for you and our government. And that's just the best. That's the one way that I want to do it. We're all human, and I'm a student, and it's just like I want to hear your concerns. And just by walking to class, I hear things like, I'm not necessarily eavesdropping on you, but you speak loudly about your opinions, and I care about those. So that's just all I want to continue to do. I just want to be here for you, and just be that friendly face, and just so that you can hold me accountable. And yeah, vote Shannon Kang.
Thank you. John Jones.
First, I just want to thank the Purdue Votes Coalition for putting on this event, and for each and every one of you tonight for attending and taking part in our democratic process. Many of my responses tonight were on the topic of affordability, and while that's definitely an important issue that I'm passionate about, it's not the only thing that I'll work on if you were to reelect me. With only 1-minute responses, it's difficult to get all the issues addressed. But here are 3 other things I commit to you that I'll work on if I were to be reelected to this office. Number 1 is mental health and physical health. On this issue with CAPS, I was a part of student government when we came up with the idea to start selling beer at the football games in order to help fund the expansions in CAPS. I've worked with Purdue administrators. I know how to get wins with Purdue administrators. I've gotten expansion in CAPS funding before, and I plan to continue to work on that issue and try to improve it. Purdue is one of the only schools in the Big Ten that have the guideline recommendation number of providers to our student population at CAPS. So we're not doing terribly, but a lot of work still needs to get done. I'm a medical student. I've also worked on this issue by working with the IU School of Medicine, Purdue Pharmacy, and Nursing to try to come up with a free clinic for our community. The 2 other issues, I don't have time to talk about them, but are transportation and public safety. Thank you very much.
Peter Bunder from the District 2.
Again, thanks to all of our hosts tonight. Whoever you elect in the coming city elections, they're going to have to face 4 issues, and here they are. First is, how do we redevelop the riverfront? That will be the next big thing for the city of West Lafayette. The second is, there will be an urban density review. Beginning in December, when we see what the occupancy rates are, the APC will provide us with information about density. What do we do next? The city pressed pause in terms of building more student housing. How do we proceed? The third is the Morton City Hall, the library. We will redo the center of our downtown, and the public spaces will be adjusted as we go forward. And finally, the 2020 census is far more important to the city of West Lafayette than it is to many other cities in this country. Why? It will affect how we redistrict again, and it will say something about how much money we were able to find in the additional population.
Peter Bunder from District 2. Now we go to District 1, beginning with Nick Deboer.
Thank you. So State Street was only the first step in a larger vision for what needs to happen in this city. And I'm running for re-election to finish that job. That means we are going to build offices in District 1. We're going to tear down Chauncey Hill and our Chauncey Hill Mall and use that as office space, use that as apartments, use that as new storefronts. We need to create new jobs in the area. We landed Saab in my district, and that's great, but more needs to happen to retain those students who are coming out of Purdue, who have ideas, who are starting companies, and to keep them here. That happens through office space. And we're going to open up City Hall in my district. There are a handful of things that need to be finished, and I'm running for re-election to get that done, to make housing more affordable, to make jobs worth having here, and to make you want to live here just like I decided to live here. And I think I'm the only one to execute on that plan. Thank you. Vote Nick Deboer.
Thanks, Sydney Rivera.
All right, thank you everyone here. Thank you to our organizers and our moderators. I am a student living in a almost entirely student district, so I really want to represent issues that students care about while also serving our fellow long-term community members. Purdue students care about people who struggle to get to a grocery store. They care about affordable, expedient access to mental health services, and I think that is something that is not just a Purdue issue that the city can help with, and it's also a problem not just in our city but in our county as well, and that's something that we as a city can do to serve our society. And I think that Purdue students care about affordable housing and doing that in a respectful way that integrates with the community. We don't have slumlords. We don't live in slums. I think that's incredibly insensitive to global poverty. But we do need to renegotiate the Historic Preservation District and talk about how we can build other apartments other than expensive high-rises. I'm a student hoping to represent students. Vote for Sydney Rivera. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Folks, can we give a big round of applause for these folks? And I'd also like to thank this woman right here, Emily Jones, who did a lot of work, and the people who helped her. And thank you for coming out. I'll turn this back over to you.
Can we please give a round of Connie for being our moderator tonight? We're so grateful. And thank you again to all of the candidates who made it out. We really appreciate you coming to talk to students. And there's another opportunity for students to come talk to them. We're going to be in Beering 1284, which is just right across the way. So you can come and talk to them one-on-one, as well as our mayoral candidates were invited to participate in that event as well, so that you can talk to them. But thank you again for coming out, and we hope you vote on November 5th.